Hi everyone, good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah. I'm coming live to you on Tuesday, September 2nd with this week's Technique Tuesday and our scrapbooking challenge. So firstly, thank you very much for your patience with me, everyone. I've had a very busy weekend with workshops just gone. And this week we have my mini catalogue launch on Friday night. So I'm super excited to be seeing 24 of you lovely ladies. And I have a market on Sunday, Father's Day as well. So I'm busy behind the scenes preparing for that. And this week's challenge, I am featuring a new sweet collection that I've actually not worked with before. And I am super excited to share it with you. But before we get into that, let's have a look at the challenge that we are completing for this week. There's Miss Doreen. Hi, Doreen. Thanks so much for joining us live. Thank you for your patience with me this week as well. So we are creating pattern 2B on page 27. I am working with a old scrapbook program book called Reflections, which I have pulled from my scrapbooking archives to help inspire you with your scrapbooking layouts. We are doing a bottom border diagonal accent this week, and I really enjoyed creating the pattern. So I'm going to give some tips to you on how to recreate this pattern. It is a single page layout which I'm creating into a double page spread, and we've got just the one master pattern with the instructions here. So to recreate this pattern, you are going to need 2 sheets of coordinating cardstock. You could use designer series paper or pattern paper that you've got at home instead if you wish. I actually decided to do this tearing technique, and rather than tear 2 separate pieces of pattern paper, I actually used the Petal Pink cardstock in 12 by 12. So this is Petal Pink, this is the 2-tone. So I'm actually using the lighter side of the Petal Pink for my scrapbooking layout today. And rather than waste 2 sheets of designer series paper, oh no, I did. Sorry, I just had a little bit of a brain freeze there for a second. I did actually use 2 sheets of designer series paper. So what I was initially going to do, I have actually torn this designer series paper in half, and I was going to use the other side over here, which meant that the open piece would have come through with the cardstock on a diagonal pattern like so. And I looked at that, and I did end up using 2 sheets of my designer series paper. And in fact, I've got both of the remaining pieces here. So yes, just double checking. I was thinking about what I was going to do, but I didn't actually end up doing that. So I do apologize for confusing you there. You are going to need 2 sheets of coordinating cardstock or 2 sheets of coordinating designer series paper. And then you're going to need, for the outside pattern bit, another 2 sheets of coordinating designer series paper or cardstock. So you can do the tearing either way. It's entirely up to you. But what I did was I tore my designer series paper, and I've stuck that over the top of my 2-tone 12 by 12 inch sheet of cardstock here. So I've torn it from one point to the other to get the left-hand side pattern, and then I've taken another sheet and torn it from that point backwards. So then you've kind of got like this open pattern through the middle here, which I really love. And what I've done here, just as a little fun technique, is just using my fingers, I have actually rolled back some of the pattern paper. So because the designer series paper is double-sided, you're going to have the side which has your beautiful pattern on there, and then on the other side of your designer series paper, you're going to have just plain paper. So to give you an example, this is the pattern here that I'm using from the Floral Charm designer series paper. This mossy meadow pattern on the back is actually what I've got flipped back from the torn edges. So with your designer series paper, you will have one side which has got like this pattern on it, and the other side which is more just like a really plain color on there. So then you've got a little bit of versatility with your papers. So if this particular pattern was not one that appealed to you, you can turn it over and you can just use the green plain pattern on the opposite side. Okay, now with your border, with your bottom border running along the bottom here, you're going to cut 2 pieces of either cardstock or designer series paper at 2.5 inches by 12 inches. And you can see here with the pattern, they've actually stuck their 2.5 inch strip over the top of where the 2 pieces of paper have met. However, because I really loved that beautiful tearing technique, I've actually popped my 2.5 inch strip of cardstock in and underneath the torn piece. Okay, so I thought about that afterwards. I went to stick it over the top. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. So I did have to lift up my designer series paper and actually just tuck the cardstock in and underneath. Now, this color cardstock I have used is Berry Burst, but it is the lighter side of the two-tone. Okay, I just felt that the original color was a little bit too... oh, no, I have used the original colour. My apologies. Oh, my gosh. I'm all over the shop today, girls, aren't I? I have used the original colour. So this is Berry Burst, and this is the lighter side of the Berry Burst. And I've gone with the Berry Burst just to pick up this beautiful colour in these roses here that you can see in my photos, okay? Now, then you have got another piece, paper dimension, a 1/2 inch strip. So you have got the option of cutting a 1/2 inch strip and putting that through the middle. And initially what I was going to do was use my 1/2 inch width of my braided trim. So this is in Petal Pink, and I was actually going to run that through the bottom of my cardstock. But because I had cut my letters out, I've used the Party Alphabet dies here. And because I've cut my Party Alphabet dies out in Petal Pink, it was kind of like just too busy. So instead what I've done is I've used the braided trim, and I've actually tied a really cute little bow, and then I've stuck that just in the corner here in front of my title. So these photos were taken in Paris a couple of years ago. This was our beautiful apartment that I was able to locate, and it was just such a peaceful haven. I wanted a gorgeous Parisian vibe for while we were over there in Paris, and it was just so beautiful to be able to come back at the end of the day, have a glass of wine, get our metro map up ready for the next day, and plan out where we were going. I wanted that feel of like staying in a Parisian neighborhood where the locals were and everyone was going about their day, like shopping and going to the supermarket and eating at the local bistros. It was just so cute. I absolutely loved it, and it was a total vibe. So I wanted to there was this beautiful damask wallpaper on the wall. You can't see it in these photos, but I've actually then run my Party Alphabet dies. So I've cut these out in Petal Pink, and then I've run the Party Alphabet dies through my embossing folder. This is the Eyelet 3D embossing folder, and it just created a really fun textured feel over the top of my letters. And then I've stuck them over the top of my Berry Burst cardstock using my Stampin' Dimensional. So it just gives a little bit of a pop up there, some really nice texture. And then I've embellished with the super cute this coordinates with this particular suite, the Charming Shimmer Faceted Dots. So you've got these in Petal Pink, Berry Burst, and then Night of Navy. Okay, so I'll go through all of those products with you in a little bit more detail. Now, in terms of your photos, you can see here with this pattern, you've got one large 5 by 7 inch photo. The really cool thing that I love about this particular pattern, depending on how you're going to do your tearing, you might have your torn bit in the top left-hand corner and then your torn bit in the other side. You might not want to use up 2 sheets of pattern paper. And in that case, when you tear it in half, you can put half in the left-hand corner and you can put the other half in the right-hand corner. If you wish to do that, that's totally fine. The really cool thing about this particular pattern is that in terms of your dimensions for your photos, that can really be at your discretion in terms of the photos that you want to put on your layout. So I have opted for 4 portrait photos, just running left to right along my layout. I've left about 1/4 of an inch here in between my bottom border and the inside of my scrapbook layout. So I've got these 4 photos running through here. I've matted them on some Mossy Meadow cardstock. So the colour palette that I have gone for is the Berry Burst, the Petal Pink, and the Mossy Meadow. Okay, that's the trio that I've gone for today for this sweet collection. So I've matted those 4 photos. They're 4 by 6 inch portrait photos, and I've cut my photo mats at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I had one other photo that I wanted to get on. So this is inside the actual apartment, and then this was the street sign, which I just thought was so cool, which was downstairs on the street underneath our apartment. You've got Jai here. He's standing in the balcony overlooking everything that's going on down below. And so I really obviously wanted to include journaling. So I have made this super cute little stamped journaling card, which I'm going to teach you how to do today. Now, what I might do is take this layout out of my memory protector, and then I'm going to slide this out of my flip flap. So I've put my flip flap on over the top of this particular photo. And then I've flipped my flip flap upwards, which means that what I do when I use my flip flap is I will turn the photo up as if I'm going to be doing that in my actual album. And then I have stuck my cardstock back to back on the photo, so that I've got my orientation up the right way. Okay, you don't want to stick it like that and then you go, oh, that actually is not going to flip the right way. You might want to have your flip flap coming out this way, and in that case obviously it's not going to be upside down, but I wanted my flip flap to come up for this particular layout. So I always turn the photo up first before I stick my cardstock down over the top. So 4 by 6 inch photo, I have cut my journal card at 4 by 6 inch. This is also Petal Pink, and it's the same tone as the base of the cardstock. And then what I've done is I've created this stamped border around the outside just as my embellishment piece. And the reason I've kept my embellishing pretty basic with this layout, there's no stickers, there's no stamped sort of die cuts. The reason being is that this beautiful designer series paper is kind of really like the showcase or the hero here. And I didn't really feel that it kind of needed a whole heap more of stamped floral images and die cuts on this particular layout. So I've kept it pretty basic in terms of my embellishing, and I've opted to do the embellishing on my journal card instead. This is stamped with the Everyday You and Me stamp set. So there was a coordinating stamp set and a die for this particular sweet collection, which I'll run through with you towards the end of my video. But I didn't invest in that, admittedly. So I just went through my stamp sets to see if I had another stamp set that featured some leaf patterns on here, which was similar to what I've got here on my paper. I had the Everyday You and Me stamp set here, and in fact, this is in the last chance product section in my online store at the moment, and it has been reduced slightly in price as well. Just a little tip is that if you see a stamp set with the coordinating dies in the last chance product section, do your math, because by buying the 2 items separately when they're in the last chance product section, if they've been reduced, it will be cheaper than buying this as a bundle with the stamp and the die together, which you do get at 10% off. But just make sure you double check that. If you are looking at your dies, make sure you check the stamp set as well, because 9 times out of 10, when they move into the last chance product section on my website, you can buy them separately and you will save money in that aspect. All I've done here is I've invested in some 5 by 7 inch magnet sheets, and I've actually taken the dies off of the card that they originally came in the pack, and then I've put the dies onto a magnet sheet, and then that magnet sheet fits inside the stamp set case, which my stamp set came in. Okay, so the 2 stamps that I'm going to use today to demonstrate creating this stamped border, I have used both of the leaf stamps. So one is kind of like a solid image and the other one's got like a little bit of a outline inside it. And you might notice that I've done some first and second generation stamping here today as well. So I want to show you how I have done that as part of our Technique Tuesday for today. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of the layout and your dimensions for your papers, and then how you want to put your photos onto the page. So let's just move this up a little bit here. Now I'm going to grab my mats. We're going to do some stamping. All right, I've got the back of my mat here. Now you are going to want some scratch paper to do this particular technique. I have got a 4x6 inch piece of petal pink cardstock, which I have already cut down. You are going to want to have some grid paper underneath because you are going to be stamping. I'm just going to pop that to the side. You are going to be stamping, as you can see, off the edges of your journal card. Now, with this particular technique, your journal card can be any size you want it to be. So I've cut mine in 4x6 inches to go into that flip flap. You might want to make yours 4x4, or you can make it 3x4. It can be portrait, it can be landscape. When you make these journal cards, it can really be any size that you want it to be based on the orientation that it's going to best work for your photos and your layout. So I'm using the Mossy Meadow ink pad today, and these are the two stamps that I'm using. So I'm going to start with, I'm just going to take that one off my block. I'm going to start with the solid leaf pattern first of all. Now with the ink pads, if you do have trouble opening these, a really great tip is to just put both of your thumbs at the back hinge of the stamp pad, and if you press down on that, it will actually flip the lid up, and I can fold that over and then I can slide that into my stamp case there. Okay, so we are going to be doing some first and second generation stamping, but I'm going to start by inking up my stamp, and we are just going to start by putting them around the outside of your journal card. Now, the really fun thing here with this particular technique is it's also called random stamping. Now, you may want to have, because we're just I'm going to randomly put these bigger pieces of the leaves around my journal card. Don't be worried so much if you're covering it over the section, if you're putting your journal card, because no one's going to look at the back of that with the ink piece. You're going to want to have some coming upwards. You can have some running down the length of your cardstock. You can even go a little bit on an angle as well. So it's kind of like random stamping as well as first and second generation stamping. Okay, so I'm just going to start with some solid leaves there in the first generation stamping. Now I am going to take that one off my block, and I'm going to pop the other leaf onto my block now. And this is where we can do some of the fun second generation stamping. So I'm going to ink this up first of all, and then I'm going to stamp off, and then we are going to stamp that a second time straight onto the cardstock without re-inking. And this is how you get a lighter tone of your ink after you've stamped the original color. Okay, so I'm just going to go around and do some second generation stamping, and I'm just filling in next to where I have actually stamped some of my other leaves here. I might do some coming back up this way. Now I did get some fingerprints on my journal box, and see here I've just actually gone off a little bit of that. Don't worry about that so much, because you're going to put journaling on here afterwards, and no one's going to notice. It's still going to look fabulous, okay? Just trust the process. So I hope everyone is having a great day today. Let's do some back this way. So all I'm doing here is just filling in some of these spaces around my journal card, meeting one up against the other. And I promise you, it's all going to come together beautifully and look amazing. All right, so now I'm going to fill some of these other leftover spaces. Oh, I need to clean this. This is looking very grotty. Hang on. I'll just get this excess ink off my block. We've had a few more people join us. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sonia. Thanks so much for joining live today. It's great to see you girls online. Let's do, oh, actually, no. I think I'm going to keep this stamp and I'm going to fill in, I'm going to do some more stamping and I'm going to fill in some of these other spots here. But I'm going to do the first generation stamping here. Okay, let's do one here. I can come back down this way a little bit. So all I'm doing now is just going around the outside of my border and I'm just filling in some spots where I haven't previously stamped. Let's do this one here. I've got some ink on the outside of my block here. Let's get that off because I'm getting that on my journal card. I've got too big a block for this particular stamp. That's what the problem is. And I don't have the smaller block handy because I have lent that to someone. I need to get more of those size blocks, I think. This one I can put on a little bit of an angle here. So how are we looking here now? Yes, I'm just going to fill in this little spot just here. And we're going to stamp that there. So you can see what I've ended up with is this beautiful stamped journal card with my pattern around the outside here. Once that dries, you will note that the colour really does start to sink into the cardstock. And as I mentioned before, don't worry too much about these. If you make these little ink splodges, you're going to cover over that with your journaling. What I did after I stamped, I'm just going to move this out the way so I don't end up with ink over everything here. What I did with my journal card is I then got my black 0.4 journaling pen and I've ruled some lines at 1/4 of an inch using the lines on my mat. I've ruled some lines at 1/4 of an inch and then I've been able to do my journaling on top of that. So you can't even tell if you look really closely. I've ended up with some fingerprints here and a fingerprint here. So once you rule your lines and you do your journaling, these little splodges won't matter so much. If they do bother you, then rule your lines and then stick some of these random little gems over the top of the little ink splodges that you've made, and then it becomes like some embellishments on your layout. So I hope you have enjoyed me teaching you that fun technique today, creating your stamped journal cards. I'm just going to pop this back into my flip flap. So this was up this way. I'm going to slide that into the flip flap like so. So when you're putting your flip flaps onto your memory protector, you're actually sticking them down so it's closed at the top. So the seal part is like this. So the open pocket is underneath. When I've got my flip flap closed over the top, you're not actually seeing that open pocket like so. So you take the adhesive back off and then you fold the flip flap over in the adhesive part before you stick that down. So that is my layout for this week's weekly challenge and my stamped journal card for you to create that beautiful border on there. So I hope that you have enjoyed that. I'm just going to share some of the products with you from this online exclusive. So in my post, I mentioned that I had a little bit of a dilemma with this week because yesterday was the 1st of September, also the first week of the month. But tomorrow on September 3rd, our new mini catalogue is going to go live. So I will be posting the digital version of that catalogue in our Facebook group tomorrow and sending you a link via email if you are on my mailing list as well. If you are not on my mailing list, just send me a private message and I can pop your email address onto my mailing list. So I wanted to share obviously something new and exciting with you, but the catalogue doesn't launch until tomorrow. So what I decided to do was share a paper suite with you that is currently available on my website. It's an online exclusive. It's called the Floral Charm Online Exclusive. You can get the Designer Series paper pack on its own, and these are the 6 coordinating colours: Timid Tiger, Mossy Meadow, Pretty Peacock, Night of Navy, Blackberry Bliss, and Berry Burst. Petal Pink was also one of the colours. You can see we've got Petal Pink on the back here with the gems and also the braided trim. And this was the stamp set and the die cuts that I was referring to earlier. So you can get this whole suite as a collection together, or you can purchase components individually, which I have done here. I've just got the DSP, the gems, the trim, and then I had the cardstock colours, which I purchased as 12 packs to have on hand here at my workshops for my customers when they come for their monthly scrapbooking. So what I thought I might do was share the papers with you so you can see the gorgeous patterns. So I'm going to share obviously one side which has got your floral pattern and the other side which has got your more muted pattern. So that's the Pretty Peacock. This is Timid Tiger, and oh yeah, I've already got the back of that one here. So the beautiful blues, the Night of Navy. And these were the papers that I tore earlier. I might pop that one in between so it doesn't look as busy. That does look lovely actually with the green and the pattern together also. Here you've got another floral pattern, and on the back you've got a more muted Berry Burst. And this one is the muted Night of Navy. On the back of that you've got this gorgeous floral pattern. And then this one is, Blackberry Bliss. And then you've got this floral pattern on the back there. So sometimes if the floral patterns, if you find them to be too busy, you have got that more muted pattern on the back, which is really lovely to work with. And then the coordinating cardstock in the two-tone that you can purchase also. The reason I wanted to share this particular suite collection with you today was because it is already available on my website in the online exclusive, and a little sneak peek that there is going to be a coordinating scrapbooking workshop kit launching tomorrow, also as an online exclusive, and that's going to be called Lovely Florals, and I'm going to be featuring that scrapbooking workshop kit and these coordinating products throughout the month of October. So I look forward to sharing more of this particular suite and coordinating workshop kit with you later during October. This is just a little in-between layout before I share with you what we will be featuring in September, and I will be doing that tomorrow when the mini catalogue goes live. So stay tuned, be watching my socials, and keep an eye out for my newsletter. Have a fabulous week, everyone, and I can't wait to see what you create this week for the scrapbooking challenge. Bye for now.